Hi guys, how are you? Welcome back to my garden on a little bit of an overcast day today, but we had rain last night, which was ideal because everything is really lush and green and fresh. The vegetable garden looks extremely nice now. I already thought in like 2-3 weeks from now, I'm going to do just a little tour only of the new vegetable garden because I'm kind of done with that now. I can't really do anything but to wait for things to ripen and grow, and this is exactly what happens. But I think I'm going to wait a little bit just to show you more. But before that happens, I just want to say thank you to all of you who commented so wonderful and positive onto my video where I shared this entire full-on garden tour with you. Some were just posting straight under the video, but a lot of you decided, even like a week later, to drop me a DM, which was really wonderful. Like a lot of wonderful, nice words and compliments, and I was so happy about that because I always say that this garden for me was and is kind of like my sanctuary, difficult word, something very private, and opening it up was really just like a kind of a conscious decision because I just love to share all of these like garden moments with you. So really thank you that you all receive what I do here so well, and for all of your wonderful compliments and encouraging words. I felt so humbled about that. But for all of you who saw that video, you know that I started the video in the front garden, so now I'm just standing with you in the midsection of the garden. And in the front garden I have 2 ornamental cherry trees, and I already shown you in the video that I'm suffering from a disease with a tree that I think in the video I called the cherry wilt or something like that, which is not the proper term at all. It is called the brown rot. This is exactly what those trees are suffering from. And when I planted those, I had absolutely no idea about brown rot. I had no idea that it occurs, so I was really surprised. And I remember back then I did quite a thorough investigation into the topic and what it is. And I also experienced that the varieties of cherry trees that I'm growing there, they are kind of like the prime suspect for that disease. I grow, I hope I say it right, Kwanzan cherries. They are those ornamental cherries. They have these kind of like pom-pom blooms, pink, beautiful, double, very frilly frou-frou. They really look like an entire cloud of pink, beautiful perfection once they're in full bloom. And since the climate here, we are a little bit on the cooler side. You know, I am at the south coast of the Baltic Sea outside the city of Gdansk. It is a climate zone 7B. It takes quite a long time for the first warm temperatures to arrive, but that means everything that I put in the garden that is kind of like a early flower, early spring bloom, like cherries, like hyacinth, tulips, all of those blooms are going to last in the garden forever. Still, I'm suffering from brown rot with those trees. And what I want to do is take you with me now to the front garden, show you the situation again. So just explain to you how you can identify if you are suffering from the same problem as well. Alfie is with me, obviously, and then just give you some information what brown rot actually is and how to treat it. So I hope you are excited about today's video. We're in the front garden now, and I'm literally standing on the driveway. So there is a gate, and just behind the hedge and the gate, obviously, there is a road. So every now and then you're gonna hear some noise from the cars coming. So apologies for that. But what I want to do is just show you the situation here. I think the border in general really starts to look really nice. Remember earlier on in this year, I replaced some lavender plants together with you, and they look really beautiful. They already start to bud up, so I'm really expecting some wonderful blooms from them. And this year, August, I need to remind myself to really come in here and prune them. I'm also suffering from bindweeds, by the way. In the front garden, just a couple of them here and there, so I could just pull them. This is not so much of an issue. The back garden, that is really troubling. But this is one of the 2 cherry trees, and you can see that some branches started to leaf out, and they look really nice with lush green foliage. They even have some cherries on them. Can you see? They are edible. They kind of ripen to a very dark burgundy, almost blackish kind of fruit. They're ready to harvest in about August time. But when it comes to the taste, I never tasted it because this is the first year that they really produce fruit. And I think the last years when they had fruit, the birds were basically faster. I kind of hope that I can try this year because I read that, well, a lot of people say they're not so yummy, but still I want to try for my own. But here you can tell that some of the branches definitely died back and are not looking nice in the slightest. And how to identify that you are suffering from brown rot is if you have these branches where you can tell that the spent flowers are dried off and kind of still clinging to the branches, and even the leaves, some of these branches, for example, there were no flowers on, just a couple I see it here, but then the leaves, they're also brown, wilted, and they stay on the branches. They do not fall off, and this is a clear sign of brown rot. And another clear sign is, I try to find a good example of a branch now in here, because I think there is one. Yes, there is. See this branch here. There are a couple of spent flowers here. There are a couple of dead leaves, and it all kind of looks dead, all the way onto here. This is kind of like where it started, and I'm going to tell you in a second why it kind of just affects certain parts of the branch, even though here it really affects quite big parts and even bigger branches. So there is one branch like this one here. It has a little bit of life in it, but for most parts it really doesn't look nice. This tree really suffered severely this year, so I really need to get in there with my secateurs and cut out quite a lot. The second one, which is just next to the swing bench, I think I never show you that tree up close, so let's just walk over there and just quickly give you a look at that. Looks a lot better. There are a couple of branches not looking cute in here as well, but luckily not the big ones. The big ones that really make the entire crown or canopy of the tree, they are looking fairly nice. So it's one of those spindly ones that are pretty long though still, so really need to get in here and prune it back. But before I'm going to come in with my secateurs, I just want to give you some information what brown rot actually is and where it comes from. Brown rot is a fungal disease, and that can occur on different kind of cherry trees, also on apricot, peaches, and on your plums. So it's quite obvious what kind of trees can be affected by that disease. All those trees that produce fruit with a stone in the inside. I also planted a peach tree down at the slope early on this year, and so far that looks fantastic. There's no sign of wilt or brown rot at all. And there's also a fruiting cherry tree in the island bed in between the two walnut trees in the midsection of the garden, and that never suffered from any kind of fungal disease so far, which is wonderful. So I was like, okay, really it is a problem mainly with these Kwanzan cherries. And I did a little bit of an investigation a couple of years ago about it, and early on in the year when they were in bloom here, and a lot of you guys shared your flowering Kwanzan cherries on Instagram, what I did is I was texting you and asked if you have the same problem and if you also have the same kind of wilting effect on your cherries, and I would say at least 90% of you guys said yes. So I know, okay, it is a quite common thing just really with these cherry trees though. This one here was hit quite bad this year, and it might have to do with the climate, because where does the fungal come from and how is the name actually? It is called Monilea, and there are different kind of Monilea fungus. This is called Monilea laxa, and I'm going to explain to you in a second what it does and where it comes from. So normally you say it occurs when the spring is quite wet and cold, and that is probably a given here every single year, and this is why they suffer from this fungal disease every single year and year after year basically. We had quite some snow this year, so when it melted off, the entire soil was really nice and moist, which is obviously good for the rest of the garden as you can see, but not so ideal for these cherries here. The fungus comes into the tree via the bloom. So what it does is it travels into the open blossoms and then into the branches, and what happens is at one point it makes a blockage into the branch, and here unfortunately really deep into the branches, so that all the juices and all the liquids that are kind of like trying to float or circulate through your tree can't do it anymore. So as a result, with the blockage, your branches are going to die back. A lot of times what happens, you will just have it at the tip of a branch, which is ideal because then you can really cut into the wood, and cutting is exactly what you need to do, how to not get rid of the fungus, but at least to make sure that it doesn't spread, because the fungus is still in all of these wilted blooms that are attached to the branches, and you don't want that they affect any of the healthy branches. There are not a lot of healthy branches on this tree, unfortunately, this year. How you would cut it in theory is if you would just have it at the tip, and you see at one point the branch starts to look nice and clean again, or like with, not clean, but like with good, fresh, healthy shoots, you would cut between 4 to 6 inches into the healthy wood. Here, there is a little bit of a problem, because if I would do 6 inches into healthy wood, I need to cut basically somewhere here, which is underneath the graft. So I possibly can't do it. So what I do is just, fingers crossed it kind of works, really come in and cut back just like underneath the first fresh looking good bud, and that is all I do. These branches are infected with a fungus. So you should not put them onto your compost heap because then you spread the fungus. So what you should do is really make them maybe smaller and then just they go into the wheelie bin, because here we have special wheelie bins just for kitchen disposal and compost. So that is perfect for all those kind of things. Also bindweeds go straight into there, all those things that you do not want to put onto your compost heap. That is definitely important. What is important as well is I cut it with secateurs, and these are one of my favorite secateurs. So after the pruning job is done, I'm gonna sanitize them to make sure that there are no fungus spores on the secateurs as well. And it is a good time of the year to really prune it now, because here, as the temperatures are rising, the fungus is very happy, it wants to thrive and it wants to spread, and this is not what I want, because worst case it can also trigger canker in your tree. So really it is a good time of the year to go in here, cut back, remove all of the dead material anyways, it doesn't look nice. And then let's see what I'm left with. The other one, I know I'm still going to have a nice tree canopy here. Honestly, 2 years ago, I thought that was for the chop, and I told the tree it is for the chop. And then it started branching out, it was beautiful. And this year I'm kind of like, it is for the chop. I'm just gonna see how it does, how it is gonna bounce back over the year. And then let's see, maybe I'm going to replace it. But before that happens, I'm gonna come in now, snip, snip, and just take out all the dead material. So the pruning job is done. The neighbors are listening to radio, so you might hear some music in the background. Sorry for that. This tree here looks really bad. I mean, let's face it, there is hardly shape in it. And I honestly thought, like, if I should strip back these top branches here, but then I thought, you know what? Let's just leave it. Let's just leave it and see what happens. The good thing is that you can tell at the base here some fresh new branches are coming. So this is always a good sign, and I'm really happy about that. Actually, multiple of them here, also back there. So I think that over the next 2 months or so, it is really going to bounce back and have a nice canopy again. Hopefully, obviously, I'm going to do garden tours later on in the year again, so you get to see what the situation is. This one here, really, I'm going to have an eye on it. I'm not really sure if it's going to stay or not. The other one, that looks a lot better, at least from this angle here. The surprise comes when I show you the back side of it. But more importantly, this side looks nice, and it still has some sort of crown. To be fair, I needed to cut out a lot more to what I initially thought, but the good thing is that there is a lot of air circulation going on now, and this is exactly what you want to have in a tree, because if you're dealing with any kind of fungal disease in hardwoods or in trees, you want to make sure that the air can circulate in there so that the fungus does not have the ability to sit there in some nice warm climate. Now, looking at it from the backside, you see I really needed to cut back a lot because almost all the branches were affected. It was not a pleasant sight. Surprisingly, this is south facing, so I'm not really sure what happened here. But all overall, I think this one as well is gonna come back. It already has some fresh shoots appearing. Can see, here is one. So I cut here basically, and then some new shoots are just coming. So I think in general, this is gonna bounce back as well. It did it just in all the previous years, and they grow slowly. This is what it is, but in a way they're always nice and a nice texture. So let's see. Obviously, I love the willow that grows there and I really love the red foliage prunus. And in a way, I kind of thought maybe it would be nice to have another prunus where that cherry tree is, just to have it again, because I also think like the red foliage is such a lovely accent. So I'm really mixed feelings about the situation. I'm going to keep you posted, obviously, but I'm happy that this job is done for now. There is just one last thing that I want to mention before I'm going to say bye to you. So remember when I explained to you what kind of fungal disease my cherry trees suffer from? It is Monnilia laxa, and I told you that there is a second variety of the same fungus which is called Monnilia fruit something with frutillaria I want to say, but it's different. I really forgot the name. I don't have it in my garden, luckily, but I've seen it already in other gardens on plums, because you might be at the stage where your tree has the plums and they're about to ripen and they look wonderful and nice, like, oh, I'm gonna have a good harvest, and suddenly out of nothing, your fruits start to shrivel up and then they are grey. They're literally like mummies hanging on the tree, and that is not a good sign. So that is just a fungus. So what you should do is get in there, pick all of those dead mummies off your tree, even if they are on the ground. Do not put them onto the compost heap again. Just put them into your wheelie bin so they are out of sight, out of way, out of sight, because you do not want to spread that fungus in your garden, especially not with a compost. So having that said, what I'm going to do now is call it a garden day, go inside, make myself a wonderful lunch. It was so lovely to have you in my garden with me today. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I would love to welcome you in one of my future videos. Take care, guys. Bye.